Well, I love my wife. She's incredible.
Yeah.
A great mother.
Yeah.
The kids are healthy and happy, and of course, there's nothing more than that.
What you experience, who you are, it's your responsibility. There's no one else is going to fix it for you.
Richard Gere was once everything Hollywood wanted and more. With his brooding eyes, quiet confidence, and a sensuality that never needed to announce itself, Gere stood as the embodiment of charisma and mystery. He didn't just play roles, he owned them. From his breakout moment in American Gigolo, where he famously stepped into the world of a high-end escort with unapologetic intensity, to becoming the corporate Prince Charming in Pretty Woman, Gere became a global icon almost overnight. For more than 2 decades, he was one of the most bankable and admired stars in the world. The kind of actor who could carry a film with just a glance, a whisper, or a single loaded pause. And then, like mist fading into morning light, he was gone. No major farewell tour, no career-ending scandal, no emotional Oscar speech. He simply disappeared from the spotlight. And while people asked where he went, the deeper question remained, what did he walk away with? Because when Richard Gere left Hollywood, he didn't just walk away from cameras and red carpets. He left behind a fortune, a lifestyle, and a country that had once celebrated him like royalty. To understand why someone would turn their back on an empire, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. Not to a film set, but to a quiet town outside Syracuse, New York. That's where Richard Gere was born on August 31st, 1949, into a modest family with no connections to show business or glamour. His father was an insurance salesman, his mother a homemaker. There was no red carpet, no backstage pass to the entertainment world, just a home filled with music, discipline, and quiet thoughtfulness. Gere was a reflective child, more interested in philosophy and harmony than attention or fame. In high school, he was an accomplished gymnast and trumpet player, later earning a scholarship to the University of Massachusetts Amherst. He majored in philosophy and theater, a strange combination for most, but a revealing one for Gere. His early choices painted a picture of a man not interested in surface success, but in meaning, structure, and truth. After 2 years, he left college, not in failure, but in pursuit of a different rhythm. Acting called to him not as a shortcut to fame, but as a language through which he could express deeper emotions. He cut his teeth in small theater productions in Seattle and New York, living with the quiet conviction that impact doesn't always come with applause. His first breakthrough came with a blindfolded performance as a death row inmate in The Killers. Head, a role where his face was never seen, but his power still filled the room. That was the real Richard Gere, a performer who could disappear physically, yet leave a mark you wouldn't forget. By the 1980s, Richard Gere had transformed from rising actor to cultural icon. When John Travolta turned down a daring, provocative film called American Gigolo, the role landed in Gere's lap and changed everything. The moment he stepped on screen, it was clear that this wasn't just another actor looking for fame. He exuded something different, sensuality without desperation, strength without noise. That single film elevated him into a new kind of sex symbol, one that didn't rely on machismo but on mystery. From there, Gere's ascent seemed inevitable. An officer and a gentleman in 1982 made him a household name. It wasn't just the uniform or the romantic ending, it was the way Gere played the character with restraint and sincerity. The film earned Oscar nominations and almost $130 million at the box office. But instead of milking that success by playing variations of the same character, Gere went in unexpected directions. He took on Bent, a raw stage production about the persecution of gay men in Nazi Germany. He wasn't chasing box office numbers. He was chasing meaning. His filmography through the 90s was a delicate balance of mainstream success and emotionally demanding roles. Internal Affairs, Primal Fear, The Jackal. And then, of course, Pretty Woman happened. It was a role he initially rejected for being too formulaic, until he met Julia Roberts. Their on-screen chemistry made history. A film that cost just $14 million went on to earn nearly $500 million worldwide. It's now one of the most beloved romantic comedies of all time, and it cemented Gere's place in the pantheon of Hollywood's elite. Yet even with all this success, fame, wealth, critical acclaim, Gere never felt like someone who belonged in the machine. While other stars chased bigger deals and louder fame, Gere quietly built a life away from the spotlight. He earned tens of millions per film, but didn't spend it the way most A-listers did. No mega yachts, no reality shows, no garish headlines. Instead, he bought land, lots of it. In 1987, at the height of his fame, he purchased a piece of land in Pound Ridge, New York. Not Beverly Hills, not Malibu. He chose a small town just an hour north of Manhattan, far from paparazzi, surrounded by woods and silence. Over the years, he expanded it into a sprawling 50-acre estate with multiple guest houses, private trails, stables, and ponds. He renovated the 11,600-square-foot main home, complete with 9 fireplaces. This wasn't just a home. It was a sanctuary, a retreat built to reflect an inner world untouched by fame. He lived there for over 30 years. Then, in 2022, without a word to the press, he sold it. The asking price? $28 million. But there was no fanfare, no goodbye photos, no final interviews, just a quiet listing and a discreet transaction. It was the kind of move you don't see in Hollywood, and maybe that was the point. Months later, he did it again. He purchased a historic estate in New Canaan, Connecticut, 31 acres of pure nature once owned by music legends Paul Simon and Edie Brickell. He filed plans to convert part of it into a sustainable farm with mushrooms, bees, and goats, a kind of return to the earth, a way to raise his children close to the soil. But 2 years later, he sold that home too, breaking even and disappearing again. No drama, no explanation, just silence. And then came the real surprise. He left the United States. Richard Gere didn't move to London or retire to some luxury villa in the south of France. Instead, he went to Spain, to a suburb north of Madrid called Alcobendas, far from flashing cameras and Hollywood circles. There, he bought an $11 million villa surrounded by 34 acres of trees, gardens, and open sky. A place with space for his children to run without seeing a single fence. No armed security, no private jets lined up, just wind, old stone walls, horses, and time. When asked about the move, he said something simple. "My wife gave me 6 years to live in my world. Now I think it's time I live in hers." That one sentence says everything about the man he's become. In his 70s, with a fortune still at his fingertips and every opportunity still available to him, Richard Gere chose to retreat, not in bitterness, but in fulfillment. He's not hiding. He's just done performing for a system that never fully understood him. He meditates each morning, raises his children with love and simplicity, and walks through gardens instead of red carpets. His wealth remains, but it doesn't define him. He kept a few small footholds in the U.S., an apartment in Gramercy Park bought in 2016 for over $2 million, a house in Southampton that sold for $36 million. But these properties feel more like memories than investments, reminders of a world he once ruled, but no longer needs. Richard Gere hasn't just walked away from Hollywood. He's walked into something quieter, slower, and possibly far richer, not in dollars, but in life. In choosing simplicity over celebrity, he's done what so few stars have the courage to do: live like a man, not a brand. Richard Gere didn't walk away from America. He simply chose not to carry it with him. And it shows not just in where he lives, but in what he drives, what he keeps, and what he lets go. His garage isn't filled with million-dollar showpieces or collector cars displayed like trophies. It's filled with machines that speak to character, history, and simplicity. A Jaguar E-Type, famously called the most beautiful car ever made by Enzo Ferrari, once sat among his collection. A Mercedes-Benz R107, known for elegance and endurance, reflected Gere's own quiet consistency. He also had a 2015 Jaguar XK, understated but powerful, and even a rare 2004 Lotus Esprit, sensual, light, and free, much like the fleeting moments that make life rich. But Gere never clung to these things. In 2023, he quietly sold his 1999 Jaguar XK8 for $31,000 to support war victims in Ukraine. No press, no big announcement, just action. That's the essence of Gere, doing without needing to be seen. For him, wealth isn't about visibility, it's about values, and the most precious assets he's kept can't be found in any vault or measured in dollars. They're in the spiritual and humanitarian legacy he's been building for decades, through organizations like the Gere Foundation, Tibet House US, and the International Campaign for Tibet, where he's served as chairman. Even when China banned him and Hollywood blacklisted him for speaking up, he didn't flinch. He kept going, not for attention, but because he believes in justice, dignity, and freedom. That kind of commitment doesn't fade with age. It deepens, and it's this same sense of commitment that redefined Richard Gere's life again, not through fame or activism, but through family. In his 70s, at an age where most actors fade into quiet retirement or clutch to past glories, Richard Gere is arranging flowers in a garden in Madrid with his 4-year-old son. He's not at a gala, not in a Hollywood Hills mansion, just at home, in a sunlit garden, watching his child grow. His wife, Alejandra Silva, is a Spanish activist born into political and media circles, but she too sought something quieter. Their 2018 wedding wasn't about headlines. It was about finding a place where both of them could simply belong. A year later, their son Alexander was born. In 2020, another son followed, whose name they keep private. These aren't vanity children raised by staff or photo ops. Gere is present for every meal, every story, every walk. There are no assistants, no walls separating dad's life from mom's job. It's just a home, lived in, loved in. And for Alejandra, he sold the estate he'd owned for 35 years. For her, he left America. For her, he learned Spanish and moved across the ocean. My wife gave me 6 years to live in my world, he told Vanity Fair Spain. Now it's time I live in hers. In 2024, after finalizing the sale of all his U.S. properties, he relocated permanently to Spain, settling into a historic villa north of Madrid. It's not a showpiece, it's not a retreat, it's simply a beginning. But even in Spain, Gere's focus hasn't dulled. He works with Hogar C, a nonprofit fighting homelessness in Spain, aiming to end it within 5 years. In Mexico, he supports a sustainable coastal restoration program called Sierra Amar, not for headlines, but for results. He doesn't speak on stages much anymore. He observes, he gives, he builds. And when Alejandra's grandmother passed away, it was Richard who insisted they carry on the family traditions, hosting Christmas with 35 relatives, setting Sunday tables for 3 generations, and ensuring the home stayed warm with presence and memory. For him, that's success now. Not a blockbuster paycheck, not a red carpet appearance, but a home filled with laughter, a morning that doesn't need alarms, the kind of love that doesn't have a PR team. And the story only deepens when you look at his 3 sons, born in 3 separate decades of his life. Homer, born in 2000 with former wife Carrie Lowell, grew up in the quiet spaces between divorce and reflection. Today, Homer remains close, visiting his father often and engaging in the same humanitarian causes Richard cares about. With Alexander and his younger brother, Gere brings something different to fatherhood. Not performance, but presence. He doesn't need to be a perfect dad. He just needs to be there. He knows that the most important thing a child remembers isn't the wealth you had, but whether you were there when it mattered most. And here's what's truly unexpected about Richard Gere. The man who once stripped down on screen and played a high-end escort now wakes up to meditate, tends his own vegetables, practices yoga, and never looks at his phone when someone's talking to him. He's not detached, he's deliberate. He's been practicing Zen meditation since his 20s, studied under Master Kyozan Joshu Sasaki, and later received Buddhist initiation from the Dalai Lama himself. This path didn't send him into seclusion. It gave him clarity in the chaos of fame. He once said, "Stop treating yourself like an afterthought." And he meant it. From what he eats to how he listens, Gere's life is an act of mindfulness. That's why he walked away from commercial films. No more formulaic scripts, no more sexualized roles for middle-aged men. Instead, he chose quiet stories, films like Arbitrage, Time Out of Mind, and Norman, introspective works that didn't sell tickets, but revealed truth. That same calm governs his real life, too. No yacht, no private jet, no fashion label, just a meditative inn in New York called the Bedford. Post, with 8 rooms, no bar and no noise, just yoga, wine, and peace. He even commissioned a special wine from Italy, Brunello di Montalcino, served at his charity events. Not for status, just for sharing with someone who matters, on a slow afternoon with nothing to prove. In a world where visibility is confused, with meaning, Richard Gere has chosen to disappear, only to be more deeply seen. He's said it before, and he's lived it. Stop treating yourself like an afterthought. He never needed an Oscar, never needed a billion-dollar franchise. What he needed, and what he built, is something far rarer. A peaceful home, a present mind, and a life lived in deep, deliberate love. He owns a historic estate in Madrid. He walks through vineyards bearing his name. He grows what he eats. He raises his children. He meditates. And he loves. He doesn't perform anymore. He just lives. With an estimated net worth of over $120 million, it would be easy to chase more, to flash it, to brand it. But he won't. Because his life is not a comeback. It's a return to simplicity, to sincerity, to peace. And maybe, after all the applause has faded, after the cameras have shut off and the premieres are over, Richard Gere is showing us something far more powerful than fame. Maybe when you no longer wish to be seen is when the world finally sees you the clearest. What do you think about Richard Gere's journey? Would you trade visibility for peace the way he did? Tell us in the comments below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that go beyond the screen.